in jiu-jitsu, I telegraph my moves when I focus on whatever escape or submission I'm attempting. And it's pretty obvious to who I'm training with. How do I learn to work on a particular move while actually setting up another move at the same time? The essence of the jiu-jitsu.
The essence of jiu-jitsu. Dave Burke question, by the way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so good question. It actually reveals something pretty cool about jiu-jitsu in many cases in jiu-jitsu, especially in like the first 3 to 5 years of training. And that's a pretty big span. But what's interesting about is that the setups for moves are actually other moves, right? Yeah. So, and you actually have to attempt the other move legitimately in order for it to work as a setup. So if you're mounted on someone and you want to arm lock somebody, don't grab their arm. That's the telegraph. What you do is you go for the choke. And you don't just fake go for the choke. You go for the choke. Yeah. You dig in, you grab some gi, you start to attack their neck. And obviously if they don't defend, then you choke them, which is awesome. But you go for the choke for real. But if they lift up their arm to defend their neck, which they should do, then boom, the arm lock is exposed and you take it. That's the way it works. And the same thing goes with Kimuras. It's like the Kimura sweep guillotine. You know that combo from the guard? It's really like a basic one that you learned from the beginning.
Bump sweep
the bump sweep, the Kimura, and the guillotine from the guard. The defense for each one of those is the setup for the other. And there's so many, jiu-jitsu, like that's what jiu-jitsu is, right? I mean, it's like triangle arm lock. It's just, that's the way it is. Yeah. You have to commit to the moves. You can't just if you do a half-hearted attempt to do a sit-up sweep on me, I'm not going to give you the reaction that you need to get a guillotine on me, right? Because if you don't push me back hard enough, I'm not going to lean forward enough, and you're not going to be able to grab my neck. Yeah. So it's not going to work. Now, as you progress in jiu-jitsu, you're able to start attacking other things. Like, for instance, you can attack someone's balance as a setup. You can attack their base. You can attack their posture as a setup. You can attack their arm position. So you can attack, the better you get at jiu-jitsu, you can attack some conceptual things. Yeah. Dean said something like that the other day. I was like, dang, that's smart. What he was saying was, he's like, hey, he said, the person on the bottom can't fall down.
Dean said that?
Yeah.
That sounds like
Think
something
about it.
Dean would say. I know.
It's one of those
so
things that's
obvious, but it's
profound. Yeah. Right? The person on the bottom can't fall down. Yeah. You can't mess with my balance at all. Yeah. But I can mess with you. If you're on top, I can mess with your balance. Yeah. That's one of the key things that I try and mess with. Your balance. You can't mess with my balance. I'm on the ground. Yeah. Think about that one.
Actually, you did say that Dean said that, but I don't know if he said that you can't knock me down when I'm on the ground.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Well, that may be just the way I put it, but that's the truth. Let's see. These principles, obviously, they apply not only to jiu-jitsu, but they apply to the battlefield and they apply to business. Because if you fake a frontal assault to expose the enemy's flank, but you don't put enough firepower in the frontal assault, then the enemy doesn't have to react to it. So they just kind of keep their perimeter secure. And then when you flank them, their flank is defended. Yeah. So it's the same exact thing. Yeah. You have to commit enough to throw the person's, to make the person react. Yeah. If you don't give them enough, they're not going to react. In the business world, if you if you put up a new product to contend with your competitor in some market, but the product isn't strong enough that it becomes any kind of threat, well, then the competitor doesn't have to contend with it at all. And you've actually wasted effort. So if you're going to go. Get the reaction that you need. If you're going to execute a move to set up your opponent, it has to be strong enough to elicit a real reaction. That's what you have to do. Yeah. Now, you could do something that's like a little distraction. That's a little different than a setup, right? You can distract someone. Usually the distraction is much more minor than a real setup. Yeah. I can get you thinking about something else while I go over here. Yeah. Not as effective, but it has its times. Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. I think Dave Burke mentioned that idea to me before. Wait, is this a question from Dave Burke? That's from Dave Burke, straight up. Yeah. So... and here's another thing. Dave Burke's kind of early in the game, and which is
a good thing because he's thinking about this stuff already.
Yeah.
But I think generally speaking, like those types of tactics, like where I'm going to go for this, and then when he reacts to that thing I went for, then I'm going to really do my real move kind of thing. And there can be chains too, by the way. It can do one thing.
Yeah, because that's the advanced jiu-jitsu.
And the next thing, yes. And the more advanced two people get when they're rolling against each other, the more that you'll see. So, but being early on.
Or the more of it you won't see. I remember when Dean and I were training like maniacs back in the day.
Sure.
And people would watch us, and it barely even looked like jiu-jitsu because the movements were so subtle. Right. Like sometimes you wouldn't even, like I would just feel his weight shift, and I would immediately shift my weight. And so there's 3 or 4 offensive and defensive moves that happen, and there's barely any movement that's visual because it's all in the weight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So when you don't see it, it's like it's just so subtle that you don't see it.
You can't
from the outside.
visually see it,
but it's totally still there, of course. So that's kind of good that I think anyway, that he's thinking that, how to do that.
Yeah,
but I think what's more important, given the stage, and this is real generally speaking because people are different, but learn the moves, the crisp like move, like how to do an arm lock where your hips should be and shouldn't be, and what makes a arm lock a good arm lock, and what makes an arm lock, for example, a bad arm lock, where it's like, how some guys can do an arm lock, but it's like super easy to escape because you have these 3 details that you just didn't do, even though you know what an arm lock is, kind of thing. So I think anyway that when you start to get those things down,
you ever roll with brown belt, Noah?
Yeah, Ollie.
Yeah. He's got a good arm lock.
Yeah,
you gotta watch out for that thing. But he's an example of like his arm lock is really good, and everyone's got their really good moves.
Yeah,
that's
fully.
a good example.
And when you get a handful of those down, or you're just your general game down in that particular way, then you can start like leaking into that kind of way of thinking where it's like, okay, I'm gonna go for this arm lock, and then
I'm not sure I 100% disagree with you, because in my mind, if you don't set things up, they're not going to work.
Yeah.
So you have to set them up, and you have to start learning where that setup looks like.
Yeah, but
Dave Burke is at that position right now. The moves are not working because he's not setting them up, because he's telegraphing them.
Yeah.
So that's why he's asking the question.
Yeah.
So when this is the answer to when that question comes, which it will when you start training jiu-jitsu and you start training against people that know what you know, or at least some of what you know. They're going to defend.
Yeah.
And it's proper that they defend, because their defense is a setup for your next move.
Yeah.
That's the part you got to realize.
Yeah, so considered, and when he asked me this before, or when he talked about it, I forget exactly when it was, I was considering it through his point of view, right? Or in with an experience. Okay, so both his point of view and my point of view. So if I'm rolling with a white belt, and like a real new white belt, and he's doing the move that they learned that day. So he's doing it step by step by the way he learned. And I'm like, okay, that's the ultimate in telegraphing, by the way. When you're looking at the steps that you just watched them learn, kind of thing. Yep. You might even have taught it to them. I don't know. So when they do that, I think that's appropriate as far as the learning process. Early on, it's like, get those down. Yeah. Practice that part of it. Yeah, it's not going to work. In fact, it might work on another super new guy.
Yeah, and I know I've rolled with guys. Dean is one of them. Where you know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
You know what he's going to do. He might as well tell you what he's going to do. And he's going to do it.
Yeah.
Now sometimes you give up an inch, and all of a sudden you feel it, and you go, "Oh man, my arm is exposed."
Yeah.
And you spend the next 2 minutes defending that arm, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Right. And I think we both know that that's so much different in this way, because if Dean's like, okay, man, that's so multi-dimensional compared to like a white belt telegraphing his moves. Because Dean, for example, he's like, I'm going to get mount and I'm going to do armbar. So him getting mount is going to be all these little micro like things in there.
Yeah.
Not to mention the psychological war that he just waged on you. And he's ahead, by the way. So you got that, and then you got all these little things. When he goes for mount, he's just gonna get mount. So to get mount, you got to do a certain thing in his case. So when he does those things, that's going to be a bunch of those things that you're talking about, all this thing. I'm going to fake this side, but then I'm going to go this side. I'm going to shift my weight. So he shifts his weight that way. So I go here. So there's little mini things, but he's just so good at it that he can just do it like that.
True.
So I think, again, the point there is like, it's a lot different with a guy who, Dean, when he says, I'm going to get mount and I'm going to armbar you, he's not telegraphing anything. He's telling you, sure, but
Oh,
he's not
that's a good
technically
point, yeah.
telegraphing like a white belt situation. But either way, I get it. Either way, I mean, everyone's different. I do think that learning those steps and learning what a good, I think getting that part down early on is I think more foundational.
It's foundational. Once you start asking the question, why won't anyone tap to my moves? I need to set them up better. Here you go.
Yeah. Yes, I think you're right about that.
That's where Dave's at.
You know, to your point, how you could, when you want to do, so it's kind of like a feint, right? In boxing, maybe a little bit more like how you say, when I go for a move as a setup move, you got to really sell that move. You got to really be going for that. So it's like bait, right? Bait.
Yeah.
In fact, you ever watch the movie Bait?
No.
Okay, so Bait is a movie with Jamie Foxx and, some other people. Anyway, so one of the guys, it's a long story. I don't want to. So they're trying to catch this gold thief, right?
Okay.
In bed. So this gold thief, but he's a real genius computer nerd gold thief, dude, and he's super good at hiding.
The way you pronounce that, you're like gold thief. I was like, okay, this is a guy that's gold.
He's a criminal, but he's like a computer guy, He's super genius, easy, like hides really well, and super hard to find, and all this stuff. And so the guy, the FBI guy, whoever, the law enforcement dude, he's like, hey, we got to set some bait so this guy comes out and gets the bait. But when you set bait, you can't be some fake thing. This bait has to be real. Like a wolf, when you try to catch a wolf, the bait has to be real.
Yeah.
It can't be just some bait you bought kind of idea. So, so the idea of the movie is they get this guy, Jamie Foxx, and they make him the bait. But he doesn't know he's the bait because he has to be real. He can't be tainted with the human scent. He got to be a real live piece of bait. So that's essentially what your moves got to be.
Absolutely.
You got to be like, hey, look, if my bait is the arm lock, if I'm going to bait the Kimura to get the sit-up sweep, that Kimura got to be a fresh, plucked out of the wild Kimura attempt.
Yep.
And then when he goes and reacts to it or
Boom.
bites it, boom, I get the sit-up sweep. Same exact thing. So yeah, that got to the setup move got to smell real. Got to smell real.
Check.
That's how I like to keep all my moves smelling super real. You see what I'm saying?
Check.
Anyway.